morning, good afternoon, good evening for wherever you're joining us from around the world. Thank you for joining us at today's webinar presented by the IA, which is, as you can see, or maybe you can't see yet, but evolving regulation of the use of consumer reviews. And so what they're going to do right now is they're going to put everybody up on the screen as well as our presentation, and we're going to jump right in. As you can see, we've got a terrific panel of people from around the world. You can see we've got Jose Roche from Mexico, Rakana Bishnoi from India, Baran Guni from Turkey, Daniel Hai from the Netherlands, and Justina Zhang from China. So as you can see, we've tried to get some great representation of folks around the world. I am Jeff Greenbaum. I am the chair of the IA's Public Policy Council. I'm also wearing a couple of different hats. I'm also the chairman of the Global Advertising Lawyers Alliance, which is kind of why this whole group is here, because GALA works in partnership with the IAA to present a number of webinars during the course of the year, kind of exploring the topic of, which is really central to where the IAA is coming from, which is how do you create a regulatory environment that is both good for businesses and allows, that is both good for businesses and good for consumers. We believe at IAA that you can create regulation that is both smart and allows businesses to thrive, but at the same time protects consumers. So this webinar series, which we do about 4 times a year, looks at evolving advertising law issues and kind of asks the question, are we getting it right? The other goal, of course, is just to educate marketers around the world about best practices so you can understand, as you're thinking about these issues, what some of the evolving issues are. The Global Advertising Lawyers Alliance is a group of advertising lawyers covering about 90 countries around the world. So one of the nice things about my day job, which is as a partner at Frankfurt Kernet and practicing advertising law, is when I have an issue literally anywhere in the world. People like the folks on this webinar, as well as people pretty much in every corner of the globe, I call them up and I get the answers that I need. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about evolving regulation of consumer reviews. And what I mean by consumer reviews, and you can look at that topic very broadly, but what we're really looking at here is the ways in which consumer reviews and other kinds of consumer testimonials about a company and its products or services have become such an important part of the advertising ecosystem. Look, people have used endorsements in advertising all of the time, but with all of this online content, with people having the ability to solicit and host massive amounts of consumer review content, and with consumers putting a lot of importance in looking at those reviews and in star ratings, there's been increased attention both in the US and around the world on the ways in which reviews are being used and the ways in which they can potentially mislead consumers. When we think about reviews in the US, we first look to the FTC's endorsement guides, which basically have 3 key principles. The first is that if you use someone's opinion, that opinion must be their honest opinion and must reflect their actual experiences. 2, you shouldn't use an endorsement or review if it doesn't reflect the typical experience when you're talking about product performance. If someone says this product helps them lose 10 pounds in a week, that should be the typical performance that consumers will experience. And finally, and the issue that's received a lot of the attention, both in the US and around the world, is if there's a connection, a material connection between a reviewer, an endorser, a consumer, and the brand itself, that connection needs to be disclosed. Meaning, if that consumer who's reviewing your product is also an employee for the company, that would be relevant to people looking at that review in terms of when they're evaluating the weight and credibility to associate with that endorsement. Another really big issue so one of the big issues that we're going to hear about today is disclosure. Another issue that is important that has become a big focus for marketers is soliciting and hosting consumer reviews, either on their website or encouraging consumers to post reviews on other websites. How do you do that? How do you do it properly? How do you ensure you're getting reviews that are honest and unbiased? How do you ensure that proper disclosures are being made? And what about irrelevant reviews? What about reviews that say terrible things about your products? What rights do you have to delete reviews that you don't want up there? Also, with all of this other consumer review content out there, marketers like to create claims based on those reviews. If you've got thousands of 5-star reviews on Amazon, can you promote that? What are the limits on how you can promote that? What happens when the product changes a little bit? Are those reviews still valid? Anyway, there's these issues and a host of others. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in, and we are going to start with there's everybody's picture and the beautiful graphics that they created, and we're going to jump right in with Daniel and talk a little bit about consumer reviews in the Netherlands. Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for this lovely introduction. I'm Daniel. Hello from Amsterdam, Netherlands. I'm an IP and advertising lawyer here, working in a creative hub. And I thought I would speak a little bit to a relatively new piece of legislation. I know that everybody's always interested in what's happening in the Netherlands, in our small country, but Europe is. European developments are probably more interesting. So I thought I'd speak a bit to the Omnibus Directive and the consequences it has for consumer reviews. So what is it? What is that Omnibus Directive? It's a big piece of legislation. It originated from the EU New Deal for consumers, and it is aimed to modernize EU's consumer laws, the member states' consumer laws. So the Omnibus Directive is already into force since 1 January 2020, and the implementation date was in last November. But now the member states implementing legislation must enter into force by 28 May. So that's pretty close now, and there are a lot of member states working hard on the implementation of these new rules into local law. Can I have the next slide, Jeff? I love asking you to move the slides forward, by the way. Excellent.
I'm happy to be your assistant anytime.
Yeah, no, I know. You're always happy to be my assistant, right? As I am always happy to be your assistant. So, the Omnibus Directive updates 4 big EU directives. One, and that's the biggest one, the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, which basically concerns misleading advertising, misleading commercial practices. And then we have the Consumer Rights Directive, which contains provisions on, for instance, distance contracts, web shops. And we have the Unfair Commercial Contract Terms Directive and the Price Indications Directive. It's a pretty interesting development as well, the Price Indications Directive. So the Omnibus Directive now says that it's about announcements of price reductions, which is pretty interesting. But that's for another webinar. Key objective of this Omnibus Directive is to increase transparency. Can I have the next slide, please? So now, specifically on consumer reviews, what does it do, the Omnibus Directive? Traders are now required in the EU to provide information on whether and how they have ensured that consumer reviews have been generated by verified customers who have bought and used the products. Now, this is pretty new, and they have to check if they say that consumer reviews are authenticated. Then they have to take reasonable and proportionate measures to ensure that those are actually real reviews, real consumers, verified consumers. Now, what are those reasonable and proportionate measures? Well, it's basically sending an email to the customer, asking them, have you really bought the product? Have you really, if you do that, at least that's my interpretation right now, then you fulfill this information and this obligation. So that's okay. Can I have the next slide, please? And then under the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, there is a blacklist of commercial practices that are misleading in any circumstance. And there have been a couple of additions relevant to consumer reviews. So what are they? The following practices have been blacklisted: posting false reviews, deleting negative reviews, transferring endorsements from one product to another. That probably also relates to a changed product, Jeff, I think. So if there's a change in product and you transfer the endorsement, that would be unlawful. and stating that a consumer review has been authenticated when, in fact, it has not been authenticated. So those are the practices that are misleading in any case. Now, so for clarity, this is the EU legislation. This has to be implemented in all EU member states' national law, and the deadline for that legislation to enter into force is 28 May, next 28 May. Is this revolutionary? Not really. I mean, we have the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, and misleading advertising is a very big, it's like a general obligation to communicate in a fair and transparent manner. So this is more of a specification of that general obligation, I would say, except for that information obligation on the trader, the obligation to state whether or not consumer reviews have been authenticated, and if so, what measures are you taking to authenticate them? That is pretty new, I think. I don't know about the national law in all member states, but at least in the Netherlands, that's new. That's a new information obligation. So hey, that's it for me right now. I'm looking forward to the next presentations.
Great. All right. Thanks, Daniel. We are going to then move on, and we're going to hear from the other side of Europe and talk to Baran. You're up.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Baran. I'm working as Senior Associate at Gün Plus Partners in Turkey. Good afternoon from Istanbul, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome. Today, I would like to talk about new regulations regarding the use of consumer reviews, which is also a hot topic nowadays in Turkey. Although consumer reviews have such a significant impact, the Turkish law didn't have a specific legislation until very recently. So, consumer reviews were subject to general advertising rules set forth under Consumer Protection Law, which is the general piece of legislation about advertisements in Turkey, and the implementing regulation on commercial advertisement and unfair commercial practices, which will be mentioned as simply advertising regulation from now on, as well as the Turkish Commercial Code, which regulates unfair competition aspects. Accordingly, the consumer reviews should be in compliance with the general principles of ethics, public order, individual rights, and good faith principle. They shouldn't be misleading, and all the claims should be true and provable. The advertising regulation was amended on 1st of February, just 3 months ago, with the effective date as 1st of March, just 1 month ago. Specific rules for consumer reviews were introduced into Turkish law by this amendment. 2 new articles were included in the existing advertising regulation, one with the title Consumer Reviews and the other with the title Procedure for Publishing Consumer Complaints. The new rules about consumer reviews and consumer complaints are quite detailed, and to present them, they are as follows. The new article about consumer reviews restricted the right to publish consumer reviews to those who have actually purchased the relevant product or service. People who have not purchased a product or service on the relevant web page are not allowed to publish consumer review. It is also ruled that consumers should be informed of the principles for publishing consumer reviews, either directly on the website or through a pop-up link. It is also obligatory for the vendors or providers to publish consumer reviews for at least 1 year without any guidance, regardless of whether they are positive or negative and based on an objective criteria like date, ranking, or seller name. Any consumer review which is found to be inappropriate for being published based on predetermined criteria should immediately be notified to the consumer who made the review. If a consumer's dissatisfaction with the reviewed goods or services is remedied by the seller, and if this is confirmed by the consumer, this review should also be published under the respective earlier negative review. Since fake comments are lately very much popular, these fake comments are also prohibited. And finally, it is banned to publish consumer reviews with health claims, contrary to its own specific legislation. I would like to underline at this point that health claims are a hot topic and the advertisement board is very sensitive about this. In addition to the above, detailed provisions regarding the procedure for publishing consumer complaints were introduced into Turkish law. At the consumer complaint platforms that publish consumer complaints, vendors or providers about whom the evaluation has been made should be given at least 72 hours to exercise their right to make a statement or reply before the publication of the complaint. Reviews will not be published before this period expires or they are found to be inaccurate. Such complaint platforms should provide the vendors or providers.
Hey, Baran, did you want me to move the slides forward?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Just if you just tell me, let's see. So
yeah,
this
no
is,
problem, Jeff. There are not much thing in the slides, so you can simply move forward or stop anywhere. Thank you.
so is this a good place, or should we? Let's see.
Yeah, we can stop here.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And then I will present some prominent decisions of the advertisement board from after that slide.
All right, great. So just let me know when you want me to turn.
All right. Such complaint platforms should provide the vendors or providers with an effective communication method who may use the right to make a statement regarding the complaint, regardless of subscription requirement. Before these legal rules about consumer reviews and complaints were introduced into Turkish law, the Advertisement Board was scrutinizing the consumer reviews. At this stage, I would like to mention that Advertisement Board is a body, administrative body, which is established within the Ministry of Trade, and board is entitled for surveillance of advertisements in any media, including internet, TV, radio, outdoor. In terms of consumer reviews, the board queried the trueness of these claims, conformity thereof to general advertising rules. The board imposed sanctions against advertisers due to misleading consumer reviews because of unproven or abstract claims, statements regarding the benefits of the offered goods and services. Similarly, there are many other decisions of the board where the board examined the consumer reviews published by the brands in their websites, social media pages, or in other media like magazines, newspapers, product labeling about food or food supplements with wrong, unpermitted, misleading health claims and mentioning the therapeutic effects like pharmaceuticals. The board found these consumer reviews misleading and violating the specific rules for health claims. At this stage, I would like to mention that the board gives utmost importance to advertising with health claims, and there is quite detailed, complex, and strict health claims regulations in Turkey, but this is the topic of another webinar as well. Anyway, I would like to provide you with some more examples of the board's prominent decisions about consumer reviews. For example, in its recent decision dated August 2021, the board scrutinized the advertisement of a food supplement in an e-commerce website. The board held that the consumer reviews about the product as to its effects of providing well sleeping, soothing the tension, and stress are misleading health claims. The board evaluated that the promoted product as a food supplement is advertised. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Food supplement is advertised like a pharmaceutical with therapeutic effects on human metabolism. The scrutinized advertisement was ordered to be seized by the board. So, Jeff, we can go on to the next slide for, the decisions simply summarized here. Another interesting decision is dated December 2020 of the board is about a local food website. Upon consumer complaint, the board reviewed the website and determined that the vendor removes from its website the consumer complaints about the defective goods and bad delivery conditions. The board held that the consumers only see positive consumer reviews, due to the removal of the complaints by the vendor. So the board concluded that the purchasing decision of the consumers browsing the website is negatively affected, and the board found these acts as unfair commercial practice, ordered them to be seized. One another recent decision, which is the last one that was rendered by the board just in January 2022, right before the enactment of the mentioned new rules about consumer reviews and complaints. In a consumer complaint platform, by the way, the name of the complaint platform is www.şikayetvar.com. It can be translated as ihavecomplaint.com. So it's a generic complaint platform. A consumer complaint was published under the relevant page for a Turkish bank about an employee of the bank in relation to the employee's private rental contract with his house, with his landlord. Actually, it is the landlord who published the consumer complaint about the bank, clearly mentioning the name of the employee as well. Because the private rental contract of the employee had no relation with the services provided by the bank and the consumer complaint was totally irrelevant, the Advertisement Board found the consumer complaint misleading as to the services of the bank. The board also evaluated the complaint as detrimental to the reputation of the bank, and the board ordered for the consumer complaint to be seized and imposed against the complaint platform, which published the complaint, an administrative monetary fine. Well, since the enactment of the specific advertising rules regarding consumer reviews and complaints is very new, we don't have any more board decisions after the enactment of these rules. But we see that the board even applies some legal rules to consumer reviews before the enactment of these rules. And the board found itself in its decisions competent for scrutinizing the consumer reviews and complaints and rendered very good decisions on grounds of misleading advertisement and based on unfair commercial practice. Finally, last thing I would like to mention that Advertisement Board was authorized by the recent amendments to prepare guidelines. We observed that Advertisement Board recently published some guidelines, for example, about social media advertisements. So we expect the board to issue a new guideline related with consumer reviews too. So that's it I would like to talk about for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I wish you a good day. Thanks,
Brunt. All right, now we're going to head over to China. Justina, you're up.
Hi everyone, my name is Justina Zhang. I'm from Translation Lawyers based in Beijing. Today we are discussing use of consumer reviews in advertising in China. Same as in other markets, user reviews have become pervasive on China's internet for every conceivable product or service. They appear on e-commerce platform, on brands' own website, on review website, on social media, or public accounts. This presents both challenges and risks for brands. Next slide, please. Consider that user reviews can profoundly affect a brand's image, reputation, and sales. It's not surprising that companies may try any means to obtain positive reviews and avoid negative reviews. Some of these methods are legal, some not. How about provide an incentive of positive reviews? It is generally fine. However, if require a positive review in order to receive the gift, it's illegal. Such a review can be considered as a fake review. Paying for it would be a form of unfair competition under the law. Then how about request consumers to post a review through calls, texts, emails, or other contact methods? It's generally fine as long as the user didn't opt out from communication from company. However, if the company does this continuously with multiple messages, or like harassingly, then the users or the consumers can complain with the platform. Those kind of complaints can result down ranking of the company or its product on e-commerce platform, or sometimes in the worst case could be delist of the company's product, then how about just set a default 5-star rating if you don't want to create your own reviews? This is illegal. Sam's Club in China did this and was fined for engaging in unfair competition. Next slide, please. Well, another form of reviews is from influencers and opinion leaders, or KOL. If such reviews is paid for, then it shall labeled with advertising or cooperate with the brands. Then such kind of reviews shall follow the requirements under the advertising law, such as true and accurate. If the review is from influencer never used the products, it's somewhat common. It will be considered as false advertising, can trigger liabilities under the advertising law or unfair competition law. Next slide. How about using the review in marketing materials? To use such user review, such as testimonial in advertisement, on social media or any other medias, it shall follow the rules of advertising law and the unfair competition law, including true and accurate, not include any superlative language that is unique requirements in China, such as the best, and must not denigrate a competitor's products. This requirement can be quite challenging for brands to comply with when using user reviews in advertisement. As genuine review, often include very straightforward and simple language like, this is the best product on the market. This is so much better than the other product. All this statement cannot be used in advertisement, even if it is from a true user review. Also, in certain industries, name or image of consumers cannot be used in advertising. This includes education, training, investment product, or any agricultural products. Other legal issues came up in this regard, copyright and privacy law. Not all user reviews are copyrightable. However, some may be protected. Hence, a brand wants to use a review in marketing. In some cases, it will have to determine who is a copyright owner. Sometimes the platform claims copyright for any user reviews posted there. Second, it's about data privacy. We can see that in some of the advertising or marketing materials, the brands or training, most time training school would like to post their users or consumers and with their image and their sometimes with their testing results to show its authentic reviews. In that case, it shall obtain explicit consent from user for such personal information under the relative new and comprehensive data privacy laws in China, such as personal information protection law. Next slide. In China, there are no specific rules on how to display reviews other than those on e-commerce platforms or self-operated e-commerce website. E-commerce operator must not make up reviews or delete reviews or display review in a misleading way, such as putting favorable comments in front and negative comments in back, or combine reviews for different products or services. Violation over these requirements could result in not only as liabilities under unfair competition law, include fines, rectification orders. In serious case, could result in revoke of a business license. E-commerce platforms also have their own rules and may take actions such as downgrading the brand's platform, credit rating, or even delist the products from the platform. Next slide. But on the enforcement side, in addition to the regular enforcement under the advertising law and unfair competition law, special campaigns have been done against traffic fraud, malicious public relations, and paid online posters. In China, one focus of this has been so-called network water army. Well, they refers to large number of coordinated users who can create a fake traffic and transaction, post fake comments, and delete negative comments for company or brand. This has been a significant concern from the authorities, as this coordinated behavior is seen as disrupting our market order and endangering social morality. As a result, there have been a number of enforcement campaigns against these internet water armies. Many internet network accounts have been removed. Fake comments, including those from influencers, have been deleted. And some brands have been banned from e-commerce platform and social media. From enforcement on the industry side, education and training industry has also been the regulator focus. Many education companies like to use real student testimonials, which often brings them into conflict with advertising law. First, it's really difficult to prove the authenticity of user reviews as required under the advertising law. And the second, it is illegal to use name or image of a consumer in education and training service advertisement. Next slide. In summary, reviews can be very useful for marketing purpose in China, but brands must be aware of the limitations, some of which I have been shared here. How a brand can use the review really depends on the location, the industry, the content of the review. This is affected by many overlapping laws, such as advertising law, unfair competition law, data privacy law, and copyright law. In fast-moving marketing campaigns, these rules can be difficult to navigate, and many companies, both foreign and domestic, have been caught breaking these laws in recent years. Hence, efficient compliance supported by local experts is always the best approach. Okay, that's all I'm going to share today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Justina. Okay, now we're going to head over to India. Rakana, you're up.
From India, and I am working with Kanan Krishme as Managing Associate, and I'll be talking about Indian legal position with respect to consumer reviews. So first, let us see who all are considered to be consumers as per the Indian laws. According to Indian Consumer Protection Act, consumer is the one who buys any product, uses a product with the approval of its buyer, or hires any service. Act also defines about the persons who can't be considered as consumers: the one who obtains goods or services for free, and the one who obtains goods or services for the purpose of resale. However, if a person buys the goods and uses exclusively for the purpose of earning his livelihood, shall be considered as consumer. Next slide, please. So in India, about 40% of the population is using the internet. However, the penetration of e-commerce is low compared to markets like America or Europe. In India, marketing on social networks is still at an early stage. However, one of the factors that has a major impact on influencing potential consumers are product reviews. In respect to this, let us see a case study. Next slide, please. So let us see impact of online consumer reviews on Amazon book sales. In India, 84% of customers in customers in India highly prefer Amazon for online book shopping. And according to BSG report in 2019, 85% of Indian consumers look for product reviews along with other types of product information before buying a product. E-worm is an emerging and new phenomena in India. The observations which were made in this study are as follows. Online consumer reviews have a higher impact or less popular products than on more popular products. The online reviews impact on sales becomes more extensive after the early months. Then the negative reviews do not affect the book sales as significantly as the volume of positive reviews. The average star ratings had a positive impact. Next slide, please. So we can see an example of Amazon where positive and negative reviews are shown. Next slide, please. So in India, companies to achieve high sales target pay a premium to influential people to review their products favorably, even if the influencer is not a user of their product. Sometimes companies send free samples to an influential blogger or buyer. They try to get fake or manipulative reviews, like when an online vendors, publishers, or authors write consumer reviews by posing as real customers. Now to next slide, please. Now to keep all these things in check, Indian government has introduced consumer protection e-commerce rules which prohibits misleading or fake reviews by sellers. Rule 6.2 of this e-commerce rule states that no such seller shall falsely represent itself as a consumer and post reviews about goods or services or misrepresent the quality or the features of any goods or services. Also, e-commerce platforms, by way of self-regulation, take a strong stand against manipulated reviews. For instance, a company's anti-manipulation policy for customer reviews provides for immediate suspension or termination of privileges, removal of reviews, and delisting of related products in case a seller has attempted to manipulate the reviews. Further, unfair trade practices are prohibited in India. As per the provisions, unfair trade practice is a practice which, for the purpose of promoting the sale, use, or supply of any goods, or for the provision of any service, adopts any unfair method or unfair or deceptive practice, including making any statement, whether orally or in writing or by visible representation, including by means of electronic record, which falsely represents that the goods are of a particular standard, quality, quantity, grade, composition, style, or model. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So violation of the said provisions results into the prohibition of the endorser from making any endorsement of a product or service for a certain time period. Imposing of civil penalties on manufacturers, endorsers, publishers, or misleading advertisements, as well as imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years with the fine which may extend to 10 lakh rupees, and for every subsequent offense be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 5 years and with fine which may extend to 50 lakh rupees. Next slide, please. In the end, we can infer that India is a developing country and the laws with respect to consumer reviews are still at very nascent stage. However, as the Indian population is inclining more and more towards the e-commerce platforms, now it is required to bring more stringent laws, as in large number of cases, companies outcompete rivals through manipulating reviews instead of competing on the merits. Also, users are under a duty to provide honest and unbiased reviews. Thank you.
All right, we're kind of great. Thank you so much. And then last, but definitely not least, Jose, we're going to hear about Mexico.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you very much, everybody, for the invitation. Well, my name is Jose Antonio Arochi. I'm an attorney at Arochi & Linder, and I'm from Mexico City. Regarding consumer reviews, I think that consumer reviews is something that we see day to day, and it's in every social media platform. Unfortunately, in Mexico, there is not a regulation that talks about consumer reviews, but we've had cases. Jeff, can you change to the next slide, please? We have cases that because of consumer reviews, we have litigated. This is a real case regarding Sephora. This was during the pandemic. At the end, pandemic was a very good time to see exactly how consumer reviews were affecting in a good or in a bad way to the different brands. And this is a clear example. Sephora had an issue because there was a consumer review that established that their products were out of date. And at the end, it came and it was a trending topic in Facebook and then in Instagram. And there was an influencer that brought the case again, or retweeted the matter, and they called Cofepris and Profeco. Cofepris is a Mexican FDA, and Profeco is our Mexican Consumer Protection Agency, or the Federal Trade Commission. At the end, the case was heard by Profeco, which is a consumer protection issue, Consumer Protection Agency, and we settled with the Consumer Protection Authority. Here is important because there's not a lot of cases in Mexico regarding consumer reviews, but you have to see exactly how to litigate the case, or see what is the competent authorities. And can we change to the next slide, Jeff? Thank you very much. We've been lawyers in the industry have tried to talk with the authorities, because we are suggesting to amend the federal consumer law and try to regulate fake news, the manipulation of reviews, because obviously there is no sanctions. You can see it in different platforms such as Amazon, Mercado Libre, all these platforms that we see in a day by day, that at the end there is no regulation, and there can be manipulation, or they can be fake reviews, and there's not any type of sanctions. So we're trying to talk to the different authorities, so there can be a type of regulation that obviously comes with social media regulation, with the influencers, because I think it's everything in a circle that comes together. Jeff, can we change to the next slide? Here, I always talk about the relevant authorities regarding advertising issues in Mexico. Like I mentioned, Profeco was the authority that heard the case of Sephora. Then we have Cofepris, which is the Mexican FDA, and you will ask why the Mexican FDA sees advertising issues. Well, they give permissions or authorities to certain products when you publicize the same. INPI, which is a Mexican PTO, there can be a consumer review that can be considered unlawful competition. And if you file an action regarding unlawful competition, well, the Mexican PTO is the competent authority to regulate this issue. The FGR, which is the Mexican Attorney General's office, if there is any type of defamation in a consumer review, well, the Mexican Attorney General office will hear this type of cases. And then you have the civil courts, any type of moral damage that has to do with maybe a consumer review, well, you hear it at the civil courts. So it's just a panorama of who are the authorities that listen different cases regarding consumer reviews. And obviously you have to have a little bit of imagination and try to see who will be the competent authority to regulate this type of cases. Unfortunately, we don't have anything in Mexico. We're trying to have at least guidelines regarding consumer reviews, because I believe that it's our day-to-day, and it's what we see in social media. And now social media platforms is the best way to measure how is a brand doing. And that's why I believe consumer reviews should be regulated soon. Hopefully, we'll try to get something. Like I mentioned, lawyers are trying to know authorities and talk to them about it and the importance of regulating this type of matters. But hopefully we'll have something at the end of the year.
Great.
Jeff?
All right. Thanks. Oh, there you go. Okay.
No,
At
the end, I think the key is to promote the creation of regulations, like I mentioned. And at the end, there's very big challenges because I believe the authorities are not prepared. That's why we have to educate them in a day by day. But hopefully we will have something this year. Thank you very much, Chef, for everything.
All right, great. Thank you. So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask maybe a question or two. The first question I wanted to ask is, one of the issues that we've dealt with in the US is that a disclosure is required if there is a material connection between the reviewer and the brand. So, and that could be something like a payment for a positive review, or it could be something like the person works for the company or works for the advertising agency. But one of the questions that's come up is, what if you offer an incentive, but it could be for a positive or negative review, right? So if you say to a consumer, we will give you a $5 coupon to post a review on our website. We're not saying it has to be positive or negative. We're giving you something in order to get the review. The question is, in the US, the position of the regulators is that disclosure is required there. And the Federal Trade Commission believes that by offering the incentive, consumers are going to feel obligated to post something more positive than they ordinarily would. Is that how you would approach it in all of your countries, or would anyone approach it differently? Go ahead.
No, in Mexico, at the end, Jeff, we don't have anything. There's no regulation, but I think there could be a type of unlawful competition in a way. It's depending the case, but I think we have to learn from you guys, because at the end, you are regulated in every single type of advertising and publicity issue. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, in Mexico, we don't have anything. Daniel, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Go ahead. So in the Netherlands, there's no specific regulation on this, but I would say that we would probably, our authorities, or at least our advertising code committee, or regulatory body, would probably approach it in the same way as in the US, because, well, in cases, a material connection is held to be there if there is just an incentive to post something on a product by an influencer on social media. So I guess that a review on a website or whatever, even if there's no obligation to post a positive or negative, a positive review, it would seem that there is a moral obligation on the reviewer to post something positive. So that would probably work out the same as in the US.
Anyone else? Thoughts? Justina?
Yeah, as in China, I think it's generally okay to provide incentives such as coupons, sometimes even cashback. However, it should not be conditioned on that user give a positive review. There are no specific rules on this, but there are already cases that any e-commerce operator provide cashback to users and just kind of put your card on your package and share with you that as long as you give me a 5-star user reviews and with good photos, and we can give you certain RMB back. And that's considered as against unfair competition law. And I think it's the same as what's in the States, that such kind of review can be considered as fake reviews because users just for the purpose to get the money or get the coupon, give a positive review.
Okay. All right, last question. So can you just talk for a second about, you've solicited a review from a consumer, or you've obtained a review from a consumer that you're going to post on the review section of your website. What's the disclosure, the specific disclosure that would be required to communicate that that review had been incentivized? Like, what's the actual language you would use? And how do you think about the sort of multi-country issues? you know, if you're operating a website in Europe and you expect consumers from all over Europe who speak all kinds of different languages, or you're in a country where consumers speak a wide variety of languages, or you know, you're targeting consumers in outside of your borders, you know, what's the disclosure required, and what are you looking for disclosure that you believe is going to be compliant generally? Someone want to take that one on?
I mean, Jeff, I think a clear example in Mexico and Latin America is Mercado Libre, which is like a Mexican, like a Latin American eBay, in a way. There is countries such as Chile that have a lot of cases regarding consumer reviews, and in a way, it's more regulated than in Mexico. I think what you have to do as a company is do a thorough clearance in companies like Mercado Libre that have a presence in all of Latin America. But I think, again, like I mentioned, there's not many regulations in Latin America and in Mexico as well. But like we were mentioning, and I talked to Ariela, who's part of Gala, and there is cases in Chile, for example, but there is not a exact regulation. But I think the word is clearance. You have to do a thorough clearance in all of the Latin American countries to see exactly how is the regulation, so you comply with it.
Okay. Anyone else? Other thoughts? No one? All right. Well, I think based on that, I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap things up. It was great to have all of you. Thank you. And for all of those of you who are joining us now or later, thank you for watching as well. In terms of future content, in July, we're going to be doing an IA webinar on NFTs and the blockchain. That's what we're all going to be working on before you know it. So now is the time to start talking about that if you're not already. And then we also do quarterly fireside chats with major stakeholders in the advertising ecosystem, and we do those every few months. The next one's coming up in May. Actually, that's next month, so I got to get working on that. And that's with the International Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to be talking about their new green marketing guidelines, so their updated green marketing guidelines, another hot topic. Anyway, thanks again to all the panelists, and thanks to you for joining us, and we hope to see you back here soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.